Previously on the Game On podcast.
Gold Coast GWS.
Oh, GWS got to be around the mark.
Yep.
I really like what I saw out of them. With Kingsley as a coach now, I've sort of got a bit of a soft spot for them. Mm-hmm. Toby Green's an outstanding leader. Outstanding. Probably one of the best captains in the league at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they've got to be top four, I would say.
They're in the same boat as me with Carlton. I'm hoping they don't have a drop off.
Yeah.
And I hope that they remain competitive because they were exciting, especially in those finals.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't rub salt into the wounds, but they did get Port Adelaide. So, I think they're around the mark. And then obviously Gold Coast with the Hardwick factor. I think it's going to be at least 12 months before we see the fruits of that labour.
Yeah, can't see him making the 8, I don't think. I agree with you there, Pete. Time he gets everything settled, players settled in, new players. They've got a lot of good young lads. It's going to take them 12 months to settle in.
And I think that's expectation. Once again, we're all seeing Hardwick going in there and going, oh, my God, they're going to be the next three-peat team and they're going to be fantastic. And they've got all these draft picks and they've got all these concessions and so on. But I think, they're at least 12 months from that.
Absolutely.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome, Game On. My name's Pete, and guess who is back? Malcolm, welcome back, mate, and thank you to Phil for filling in for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, appreciated, Phil. Not the best couple of weeks, but that's life. Listening to the show last week, I admit I'm probably not quite as hard on Steve Smith personally. You know, if he'd received just a fraction of middle order support from either Head Carey or Marsh, whatever we get home. So I'm not quite as hard on him as that, but I understand where you're coming from. I do think, though, it shows where Australian cricket is at now. The fact that he did go up to open because they wanted to get Green in the side, and I get that.
Yes.
You know, as a lover of Shield cricket, Green, I rate Green.
Yep.
But it's not like there's numbers bashing the door down. Like years ago, there was Lord, Devanuto, Cox, Siddons, Bevan, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Dean Jones. You know, every state had 2 or 3 players in it. You go, well, they could easily be in the test side.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, welcome back, mate. Good to see you back on the on the right side of the sick list. But we're going to tee off a little bit on the cricket a little bit later. But that's a good start to get us underway today. So let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, today we're going to talk some tennis, some SANFL, some soccer, past players, past legends for today. I've been looking forward to this one. Rachael SPORN, so looking forward to speaking to her a little bit later. But as per usual, mate, let's get kick off with the AFL. We've got a lot to talk about over the last couple of weeks with you not being here. Phil, obviously being a Port man, so balancing things out very, very nicely there. But let's start
loosely using that word, balance.
Nah, fair call. Let's start off with Adelaide. It looks like Mark Bickley is going to return to Adelaide in an official role.
Yeah, I like that. Bix is the voice of reason. You know, he's actually called that because it's exactly what he is.
Yep.
And, professional. As he said, we've had him, lucky enough to have had him on the show. He's a person I respect enormously.
Absolutely. I think it can only be a good thing. Obviously, the role was vacated by Sam Jacobs, who has obviously now moved on to be SANFL league coach at Woodville West Torrens. So we wish him the best of luck there in that role, except for when they play Nord, of course.
Exactly.
But also wish Bix all the best there for his new role, and I think that is a perfect fit for the Crows. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide has the youngest captain in the AFL. How do we sort of see this affecting his performance on field a little bit? Because it is a big role.
Yeah, but I think it's more the role off-field, and that's why clubs have co-captains. It's not like cricket where the captain makes the decision. Clubs have co-captains because there's so many coterie functions they've got to be at and all that. That's why they do it. So that's why I'm quite a fan of co-captains. Mm-hmm. It's just tradition to have only one. But I actually see the value in that way. I don't think it'll affect him at all. He's a gun. I think Horne-France is hitting the track fully fit. I think that's more the scary option.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those three together, they are the dynamic trio. I think they're the most exciting threesome together in the competition in the midfield. So, yeah, we just wait and see.
Now, we've talked previously about Boakey remaining, obviously, at the club this year. Is it a opportunity for Connor to sort of tap into some of his resources and helping out with a bit of a sounding board? We obviously talked.
He'll do that. Yeah, he'll do that. He's, unfortunately, we saw against us in 18 how mature he was, and everyone knew how good this kid was.
Yep.
I think he was always going to end up. Him captaining an AFL club's no surprise whatsoever.
Yep. Yep. Obviously, Port Adelaide opening their new centre down at Alberton Oval looks very, very impressive. I did actually watch the progress video advertisement or promotion that they put out as to when it started out as the old concrete concourse dug out and club extended. And, it's a fair facility. I mean, we're sport for choice here in Adelaide, obviously, when it comes to facilities. And I really look forward to seeing Adelaide's turn now at getting their opportunity at Thebarton and seeing what they can build. But, AFL's really taken to another level, and Port Adelaide have done it better than most, and congratulations to them.
It does. It does look fantastic, as much as we might bag Port and all that.
Yep.
But in fairness, it does look superb.
And obviously, these kind of facilities help attract players. So, can only be a good thing. And well done to Koshy and the team there. On a bit of a side note, Warren Treadray, the new board member, after a pretty close election with Bruce Abernathy. 199 votes, they're saying.
Yeah, there was over 10,000 votes cast, which is a huge number of votes cast. There's been a bit of criticism about the way Port did it, that they were both restricted to 250 words. Yeah, probably could have been a little bit better, but I think there's also a little bit of an article on the mongrel punt, a little bit naive about what goes on, and probably a bit of a lack of research there, if I'm really being honest.
Yep.
But I don't agree completely that it's the Hinckley versus Hinckley. I think they're both pretty well respected around the traps.
Absolutely.
And that is one area I vehemently disagree with Warren, but we won't worry about that.
Yep.
Yeah. So just wait and see.
Obviously, having a club legend, I suppose, come back into the fold can only be a good thing. We did talk about Mark Bickley a little bit earlier coming back on. So, look, these things can be positive. I did hear an interview with Treadray sort of saying that, he is going to be that voice of reason, I suppose, and give an alternative point of view. Do they have to agree? Absolutely not. No. Do they want to see those differences in opinion to make that club better? Absolutely. And I think that's only a good thing. So, fantastic, and congratulations, obviously, to Warren on that front.
Well, the last thing you want on a board is just all people agreeing and yes men.
Yeah.
That doesn't get you anywhere anyway.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll stay with the AFL. Something interesting came across the table yesterday was players who have played 100 games for your club. What do we look at as the sweet spot? Because Adelaide have got 8 players currently with 100 games plus, and we'll go down to Port Adelaide, which has 12. Brisbane have 18 and Geelong have 18 as well. Where does that sort of leave you? I mean, where Adelaide's at the moment, with only having 8 players above 100 games, I think a credit to what they're doing at the moment, and vice versa, with Brisbane having one of the most experienced lists, making grand final last year, has to put them up there with, sort of being favourites this year.
Such a fine line, though. It's a ruthless game. Like, you think of Tyson Edwards, where the game caught up and raced past him just so quickly.
Yes.
Virtually in a blink. And it can happen to that older player. And it's interesting with how many older players both Collingwood and Geelong have got, whether that'll happen. We just got to wait and see. I think teams are a lot smarter nowadays with their training and that they back off for the older guys.
Yep.
And I think there's a bit more
science behind it. Yep.
Yeah, so I think they're smarter, and that's helped. And, like someone like Isaac Smith kept going, and Geelong got very good service out of him when you would have thought he was nearly at the end at Hawthorn, and instead, another 4 or 5 years later. So we've progressed. You just got to wait and see. I think around 100 games is the correct mark, is the good mark. But also, it can be someone like a Max Michelani.
Yes.
Now, the rate of him of improvement from the year before, where, again, I think it's such a prick of a year in some regards that you think he's Nord, he's SA under-18s, he's Crows Academy, he's Ross Trevor. So he's got 8 million bosses. So no wonder Jack Hurd's having to try and teach him in a first semi of Nord's defensive structures, because he's getting mixed up.
Yep.
All of a sudden, one boss, everyone goes away, he goes. Now, I think he'll just keep improving. He's only played 20-odd now.
Yep.
I think for him, 50 is going to be enough, and away he goes. I think he is a future Ben Hart sort of thing. So
you're right. It is a fine line between pleasure and pain. Obviously,
Jay Griffin.
Obviously, like we said there, Brisbane with 18, Melbourne with 17, the Bulldogs with 17 as well, and Geelong with 18. So I think the sweet spot's probably around about having on your list around about 13, 12 to 13, 100 games plus. But it's a little bit of a, for Adelaide, we'll talk Adelaide first, I think it's a little bit of a rewind to the future in 97, 98, where they did have that group of really experienced players, and they did have that youth coming through, like an Edwards, McLeod, Goodwin, Johnson, players like that. It's almost feeling like that once again.
Yeah, and it's a bit of guesswork. You're going to know that Simon Goodwin in his 10th game,
he's a premiership player, yeah.
But not only that, you're not knowing at that stage how footy smart he was.
Yep.
Ironically, those of us, because he played cricket for Payneham, we're looking at at your back window now.
Yep.
Those of us who were around knew how sport smart he was. So it wasn't a total, but for the footy overall person, you weren't expecting this mature kid to go to the exact spot in a grand final. To be put in the middle in your 10th game is incredible, really.
Yep.
So Jarman goes to bounce, goes to full forward. Goodwin starts at the back of the square. So not only that, he understood exactly what he was meant to do. Now, a lot of kids would have scrambled him in a grand final, where Simon knew exactly what he was doing. So, and Kane Johnson, did the job on Harvey at the age of 19. Yep. So you just don't know.
Absolutely. AFL's obviously changed quite a bit since then, and Port Adelaide obviously with 12 players above 100 games, but obviously they brought in some players this year as well. So you have to sort of preface that and go, gee, they got great talent at the end. At the beginning with Horn Francis and Rosie Butters, who are starting to get up there in games. But they've also got the experience of, say, Boki Wines, Radigalia, coming in, Alir. So I think they've got their balance pretty good too.
I think it's fascinating with Port where it'll go, Soldo versus Sweet. Like, normally if they've recruited 2 ruckmen, normally one's the pretty obvious one and the other one's the backup in the SANFL. Yep. And if the injury gets, where those two, I don't think there is. I think they'd be absolutely flat out, both of them, be building the crap out of each other.
Yep.
Trying to get the number 1 spot.
Port Adelaide's obviously blessed with tools. That's really where they're at. I mean, you have a look at their forward line. I mean, Finlayson,
Ollie Lord.
Yes, Lord, Marshall, Dixon.
Oh, and coming back from injury that he did his knee, coming back from his Rico, the Western Australian. It's Mitch Georgiadis coming back.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of competing for the tall forwards. The other fascinating thing is how Radigalia and Alir are going to work together. That they're both, well, so are most players, best off in the +1 role.
Yes.
No one really wants to stand an opponent.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. Thatcher from Essendon, how he fits in. So I think there's a lot of questions, but
if it clicks, it's going to be very, very good for Port Adelaide.
Come back to the dynamic trio.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck there. And as I said, there's that sweet spot's around about 12, 13, 100-plus game players. Yep. And I think Port Adelaide are right in that at the moment. As we've talked about previously, we think they're in their sweet spot and we wish them the best. All right, who's the one? This is another one that sort of came across the list here this week. Who's the one player currently playing at another club that you would love?
Patrick Dangerfield.
Right.
Yep. I am a massive Dangerfield fan. Dangerfield would still be here. I think the Crows would have another premiership at least in 17.
Yep.
He's a superstar.
Fair enough. Mine's probably Charlie Cameron for the Crows. Port Adelaide was a little bit harder. Who do you throw up? Because I think Port Adelaide have got their trades right in that most of the players they've either traded out and traded in for them have become useful for Port Adelaide, but not so useful for other teams.
Yeah, there's no one's really...
Impey, maybe?
Yeah, but there's no one really smashed them the other way, like Wingard certainly hasn't.
Yep.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
We'll leave that one on the question mark list, and we might circle back to that one next week a little bit and see what we think. All right, let's move on to cricket, mate. This is where it's all at. Glad to have you back in commentating on the cricket, but where is the state of cricket at the moment? Because I'm a little bit worried, but
massive worry.
Yeah.
It's a huge worry. Unless Australia, India and England support the other nations, as Tim May spoke about, and all the best to Tim. I did message him today, and keep fighting, Maisie.
Yep.
So we just need out of that, unless they see that whole picture. The last thing we want to have is only 3 countries playing Test cricket.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be some realisation where it fits and all that. And
For me as an outsider, it does look like it's a bit of a hodgepodge at the moment, and everybody wants their slice of the pie. And you have mentioned previously, obviously, India providing 78 cents in every dollar. That's great for the game and great for India, but it's not great for the overall world of cricket.
You've got the absolute farcical situation at the moment that India have bankrolled the 2020 league in South Africa. And the players aren't allowed to play in the test side. So we've currently virtually got a third side. There was one player who was set to make his test day debut who got recalled back to South Africa as he was a replacement player to make up the numbers in the 2020 franchise. So it's completely around the wrong way.
Yep.
And that's Indian money. So unless the countries see the overall picture... World cricket, it is a massive worry. And I'm a cricket moron.
And hence the reason why I left it on the sheet. We did talk about it with Phil last week, but I really wanted to get your point of view on it.
Oh.
Is it a case, and this could be sort of adapted to a lot of sports, but I think tennis have sort of got it right where they have their Grand Slams, and that 2 weeks is blocked off just for that Grand Slam.
And that's the big thing.
Is something like that could happen with cricket in that these 2 weeks or 3 weeks periods are blocked off just for Test cricket and there are no 2020s going on?
It sounds great in theory.
Yes.
The problem is Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, where the time to block off is totally different, obviously.
Yep.
So unless they work together a hell of a lot more than what they are at the moment.
But isn't the goal to have it obviously on TV, streaming as much as possible? Is it a case of that, your first tier could be in that, again, I refer back to probably the tennis scenario where your top 120 players are automatically directly entered into a Grand Slam. Is it a case of that the top nations, those are the 4 or 5 periods that is blocked off just for Test cricket, and then the sort of second tier, third tier is playing sort of in that time? I mean, I'm just trying to balance it. That's
the worry is the multi-million billion-dollar Indian businessmen who control it effectively. They control world cricket, and I'm not sure they really care. It's all in the bank balance and all that. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, I would rather have players coming to your tournaments fresh rather than basically being exhausted by, basically playing Test match cricket one day and then having to back up 2 days later for a T20.
For me, the 2020, like if the strikers win, they win. They lose, they lose.
Yep.
Like when they won the tournament, sitting with Mark Robinson, it was, okay, see ya.
Yep.
I'm sorry, South Australia win the Shield. I'm out and about for a month.
I was about to say we have to take this on the road if South Australia win the Shield. We'll have to follow you wherever you go with all of the players, which would be not a bad thing, actually. All right. Australia in the under-19s had a bit of a triumph against India, which is fantastic. Haven't won it since 2010?
Yeah, 2010.
Yep.
Mitch Marsh and Hazelwood both played in that side.
Yep.
Mitch Marsh was captain. Pleasing performance. Interestingly enough, by Haj Singh, a lad who came to live in Australia quite young from India.
Yes.
Who top scored, so bit of irony there.
Yep.
But yeah, the couple of quicks in the side show a fair bit of promise.
Absolutely.
Calling themselves the Cartel and McMillan 3 for 15 in the final. Peake, son of former Victorian player Clinton Peake.
Yep.
Yeah, he looked good as well. So yeah, there's some promise there, and let's be honest, those guys will be pushing pretty quickly for Shield performances, you would think.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was a good result.
Absolutely. All right, mate, this is what you've been waiting for. I did leave this one again on the run sheet from last week, but once again this week, something weird has happened on a cricket field, and weird things continues to happen. Just run us through your beef at the moment, the rulebook rant.
Okay, let's go. Let's start off on the sensible side of it in terms of every sport has weird rules and laws in it, and nothing happens to them until they're exposed.
Yep.
E.g., Greg Chappell knowing that the underarm was still legal. Now, if Greg Chappell, that hadn't been bowled back then, you know what? The law would still be in the game because no one would have picked it. So because Greg Chappell knew that rule, it then goes out.
Carey, Bairstow,
Yep.
Classic example, yes.
Yeah, but that was just done by Bairstow.
Yes.
Yep, but this, in terms of the laws of the game, require one player to inquire whether the batsman is out. That's it. That's the law of cricket.
Yep.
Now, you do not know whether the guy at third man has appealed. The umpire didn't know where he was positioned, whether Spencer Johnson, whether that's an appeal or not.
Now we're obviously talking.
That's debatable. Yes.
Now we're obviously talking about the Australia West Indies T20 game here in Adelaide.
Now, my personal opinion out of it.
Yep.
Disgraceful umpiring. It's Kath and Kim umpiring. It's look at me, look at me, look at me stuff. Out of that, the common sense thing was he either gives it out, run out, or he goes to the referral. He goes to the referral. No one says a word, and it's given out. Right? No one would have said a word. Now he decides that there's no appeal in terms of.
But
Jared Abood. Right, so he decides out of that, there's no appeal. Now, internally, within cricket at the moment, it's being said, for goodness sake, bizarre umpiring, but the public line is, no, the umpire has done the right, it's correct because he didn't hear an appeal. Where privately, that's not being said.
Yes.
And
I can't understand players not appealing. I mean, it was a direct hit. Someone somewhere on the field
Johnson
has to...
took the bails off. Johnson took the bails off.
You're right.
But out of that, and David made the point that he appealed. Now, I'm sorry, for mine, it was unnecessary by the umpire. We've got it now that you go to the third umpire and all that for everything, run-outs and stumpings to prove it's out. So why have we still got this archaic rule that you must appeal? Jared, I'm sorry, he's a barrister by his work.
Yes.
And I think that showed. It lacked
common sense.
Yeah. Appalling umpiring for mine.
Mate, we did talk about a few other weird things. The ball hitting the stump and rotating the bail almost 360. I think we've seen it all in the last 6 months, 8 months as far as cricket goes. It's really exposed a few of those rules that the average cricket punter wouldn't have known.
Yeah, look, I think the bails... we like the bit of them
lighting
flashing
up
and all that, but we like that. But I'm sorry, is it really necessary?
Yep.
No. And the weight in them, therefore, of that makes it harder to come off. I just think it's over the top.
Yep.
Let's go back again.
It's for TV. Yep. Obviously, the one-day series and the T20 series, but a few new faces, which is good for the Australian cricket team. But Fraser McGurk seems to be the one that everyone's talking about. Ricky Ponting's given him some pretty high praise. Is it a little too early?
Oh, massive too early. He averages 24 in first-class cricket at the moment. I'm sorry. I want to see him go out and bat for South Australia and bat smart. Mm-hmm. First game of the year, he's caught on the long-on boundary at 2 minutes before lunch off Freeman's little offies for Tasmania, where It was just so dumb. We go to lunch at 5 for 130, first game of the year, where he got 30 off 20-odd balls. Just milk it for the one. Mm-hmm. Until he starts to do that, he's made 100, and again, it was off not many balls. And then he made that one day 100 off stuff all. And I think that's still a thing. He's trying to bash shit out of every single ball. I want to see him go out there and bat and construct an innings and actually learn his game. At the moment, I don't think he understands the art of batting whatsoever. He's got a lot of ability, but no. Dizzy summed it up. I actually heard Dizzy on the radio on Sunday night about it on the way home, where he said, what Ponting is really suggesting there is let's get him around the A squads and touring and all that, get him in there and try and fast-track the learning. Right. That was Jason's way of really taking what Ponting meant. And I think Dizzy's right in that way.
Yep. So. I'm going to throw this one at you. Do you see him as a little bit of a David Warner 2.0?
No.
Nope.
No, not yet.
Fair call.
I was there at Warner's debut where he got 72 against South Africa, against Steinmorkel and all that. And I'm sorry, that's a hell of a lot better than what the West Indies at the moment. Like we had the Farskell game in Canberra where you and Phil spoke about it. Like where Australia got the runs in 6.5 overs now. Why in the hell they didn't therefore go, right, there's a 2020 game on now because of the poor punters who paid to come in after dark. Yep. It was ridiculous.
Absolutely. The only reason I throw up David Warner 2.0 is more about the aggression and, trying to take things on a little bit. I get that part of it, but as you have put it just perfectly, he just needs to learn to temper it a little bit.
There's a lot of things to learn from yet.
Fair call. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, the tennis, the SANFL, the soccer, and our past players, past legends, Rachael SPORN.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, we continue on with the tennis. Jordan Thompson reaches the quarterfinals in Dallas, and so does James Duckworth.
Yeah, a couple of promising things, a couple of journeymen and people players who've been around for a fair while, and good to see them still progressing.
Absolutely. Well, Thompson, by reaching the quarterfinals is now at a career high,
which is
as
great.
well, which he had eclipsed obviously at the Australian Open, and now making quarterfinals in Dallas has helped him sort of improve that ranking as well. Thompson had a pretty good Dallas tournament because he went on with Max Purcell and they were crowned doubles champions in Dallas as well. So it's been a pretty good week there in the US.
Yeah. So I just, you just want to see some, and what we want to see is Australian get up and having a real crack. Yep. I think Dimonor was a bit disappointing in the Australian Open. I think mentally, where you spoke about where he lacks the weapon, but I'm not convinced, man. I don't think he's Leighton Hewitt was just so strong mentally. Yep. And ironically, we were mucking around on the weekend with a parent when a youngster played an average shot, and we said, you're going to make him walk home. And he said, turned and went, I was actually there when that happened. Yep. He actually saw it happen to Leighton Hewitt. So
that's a story that keeps growing legs.
Yes.
Obviously, I think Dimonor probably peaked a little bit early. I mean, he was playing some really good tennis before the Australian Open, got himself into a bit of a groove, but when it counted most, just went missing, and obviously that final set.
Yeah, that was terrible.
You sort of scratch your head a little bit about that, and I'm sure Leighton will get him back up and going. Now, here's something for our tennis fans. We have an Australian champion at the age of 17. Maya Joint becomes the youngest Australian to lift the ITF 75 trophy.
Yeah, I knew. Bit unlucky on the name.
Yes.
But look, great to see, and hopefully we've got another youngster to come through and really compete.
I think she's in the top 25 at the moment in the juniors, but obviously winning an ITF 75 title will obviously help her with her senior progression. Tracking. Exactly right. Yep. All right, SANFL, in particular SANFLW. A few SANFL trial games have been played. Norda off to a good start with a win against North Adelaide.
Yeah, call the year off. That'll do. Well done. Well done to the illustrious Farrells and that.
Yes.
So progressive start for
Absolutely.
the legs, and some around the traps. So
South Adelaide having a win, Glenelg having a win, Woodville also having a win. Now week 2 of the trial games, Centrals versus Woodville West Torrens, South v North, and West v Sturt. So some interesting games, and it's good to see footy's just starting to get rolling around again. I know we talk about the AFL a lot. We want to talk about the SANFL, but we don't see as much of that as we would like. But obviously the girls are getting off to a bit of a start, and obviously a couple of warm weekends as well.
Yeah.
To finish us off on the SANFL have handed down their breaches to the Gazer Football Club for their salary cap, basically recognising that there were 233 breaches. The 20th of February is D-Day for submissions for whatever the penalty could be. Could this be potentially door closing for that club?
It's got to be potentially. Yeah,
it's scary.
Yeah, you've got to wait and see what comes up. But, it's pretty average, pretty disappointing.
Obviously we talked about this when it first broke a couple of months ago. Seems like the investigation has come up with over a couple of year period there of 233 breaches. They have pleaded not guilty to it, so it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
They've been found guilty.
Found guilty, yeah, exactly. So, no one wants to see a club close.
Do I think they're the only club who've breached? No.
Absolutely not. No.
But, geez, this is obviously pretty widespread, and there's obviously a fair bit of evidence there to be found guilty of 233 breaches. So let's just wait and see.
Absolutely. We might comment on that one over the next couple of weeks, but no one wants to see clubs close. I just hope that there's a little bit of sanity that prevails, but you want to get around that club as much as you possibly can if you're a former member and maybe help them out, but it's hard to justify it, that's for sure. Yeah. All right, we move on to soccer, mate. Adelaide United were lucky to get away with a 3-3 draw against Perth.
2-0 up after 22 minutes, and the highlights at half-time, they should have been 6 or 7 up, and then fell away dramatically, and then luckily got the equaliser right.
97th minute, yeah.
I think that's the problem, is they're just so inconsistent, and if they put away, honestly, they, as I said, could have been 6-7-0 at half-time.
Yep. Obviously, you mentioned it right there that Carl Viet in his press conference obviously pointed out that the inconsistencies he needs to iron out as part of his game plan. But he does have a squad that's ever-changing, and that probably leads me into my next point, is that Adelaide United have actually produced a couple of very, very good young players that are now going to get their opportunity overseas. Yeah. That's a big tick, really, in the big scheme of things, but at the same time, you want to be winning championships as well. So there is that fine line between pleasure and pain in progressing and making those players better.
The other one was losing Goodwin. Let's be honest, he did very well at the World Cup. He showed he was the premier player in the A-League. So to lose him, and I think that's where, if he's around, suddenly they're a hell of a lot more consistent.
Yep.
You probably bank that we'd have another 5 to 10 points. So,
and that puts them probably in the top 4 at least, gives them a good opportunity.
Completely different.
Very, very interesting. All right, mate, let's take another very, very quick break. When we come back, past players, past legends, Rachael SPORN.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Past players, past legends, past legends.
We are privileged to have basketball royalty with us tonight. Rachael SPORN, a casual 5 times WNBL champions, twice MVP Grand Final, twice WNBL Player of the Year, 2 times WNBL All-Star, WNBL Top Scorer, 304 games for Australia, 3 years for Detroit, Australian Basketball Hall of Fame, Australian Sport Hall of Fame, OAM. Rachel, we could keep going and going. What a privilege to have you aboard. Thanks, Rach.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to join you.
Thank you for joining us, Rach. Obviously, that's all we've got time for because there's plenty of stats there for us to talk about. But like with most of our guests, we like to start with where you sort of grew up and some of your juniors. But in doing a bit of research, you didn't play too much junior basketball.
No, because back in the day, there wasn't really like the talent identification programs that are around now. And I was because I was country Victoria, I was 6 hours from Melbourne, but I was closer to South Australia, 2.5 hours from Adelaide. And so, I just played in the, I obviously grew up in Murrayville in Victoria, but played in the Lameroo and District League with both netball and basketball. And yeah, I think we were just a little bit too rural to be discovered, to play a lot of junior basketball. And yeah, there wasn't any junior programs growing up. So when I was 9, I was playing with adults. I was playing with my mum. And yeah, so it wasn't until I was, I guess, 12 when I had a growth spurt, was playing the A grade. And yeah, mum and I won 5 premierships together, which was pretty special. I love, that's one of the things I love about in the country, is that you get to play with your parents, which is pretty cool.
That's an incredible record, Rach. Something.
Yeah, and yeah, basketball wasn't offered all year round. It was just in summer. You know, we trained once a week, played once a week, and I grew up playing on outdoor courts. We didn't have an indoor gym. So yeah, it was pretty different.
Netball as well, or always basketball, Rach?
No, netball too, because I actually started playing netball when I was 7, because there were juniors in netball, so I could start a little bit earlier. And so loved the ritual of netball and football being played together. So you'd all set out as a family, and it was such a wonderful outing, you know, every Saturday during winter. Absolutely love those times. Yeah, but I did love netball just as much as basketball. But yeah, my basketball sort of ended up finding me in a way.
And getting to play with your mum, obviously, when you're a junior, most people love to do that as juniors, but they often come back to it when they finish their career a little bit. But isn't that fantastic that you're able to still do that?
Yeah, 9. What took you so long, Rach? Come on.
And yeah, because basketball was actually introduced into our town in Murrayville in 1968, the year that I was born, because a school teacher came down from Oyen and taught the coach at the time how to play basketball, because it was a very new sport in Australia. And yeah, so the rules were very, very basic, and training was very basic. So when I look back on it, it's yeah, because we just didn't know a whole lot. I'd never got to see women's basketball on TV, because the only time I guess I saw women competing was the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games, and they just didn't. And basketball wasn't in the Olympics, well, not until '84. So I just didn't see any women's basketball on TV at all growing up.
And so from there, Rach, so you had your growth spurt, your thing, and you've been spotted by a lady from West Adelaide and came down here at the age of 17, and go from there. You were sort of fast-tracked pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, so a wonderful lady, Beth Sell, saw me playing an association game in Bordertown, and it's quite a funny story because she saw me play and she knew that my surname was a football surname because of Dad.
Yep.
But so she sort of went back and told the West Adelaide Scouts about me, and all she could remember was her name's Rachael. She's tall and skinny, and she's got sporting a football surname. And as fate would have it, there was another Rachael who was tall and skinny, and her surname was Ebert. So she got invited down, not me. So they sort of realised, not sure if this is the right recruit, and so they had to come back and then invite me down. They wanted me to move to Adelaide when I was doing year 12, but I was like, no, there's no way I'm leaving home, my most important year of school, because obviously not knowing that where basketball was going to take me. So Mum would drive me down to Adelaide once a month for the tall girl clinics. That's what they were called. So that was my first ever specialised coaching, at the age of 17. And yeah, 86, I moved down. So my brother Kieran was already here with West Adelaide Football Club. So that sort of helped. But I was very homesick. I realised I wasn't very fit, and I realised I had no left hand. Didn't know how to play man-to-man D. I didn't have a jump shot. So thankfully I was at uni, and my coach spent a lot of time with me at the time, Ted Powell, who sort of did fast track me and taught me how to do a jump shot, and everything else. So 86 was pretty hard. I was a bit overwhelmed at times because it's like, oh my God, I've got so much to learn, but thank my 17-year-old self every day that I didn't give up and didn't quit.
And so that you were 4 years with West Adelaide, then joined North Adelaide. And look, I will be honest, I was at Nord High with Marissa Rowe and Megan Roach, so I reckon I may have come out and had a look at the odd game or two back then, Rach.
Yeah, and probably because we're wearing sports briefs and not even
Marissa did poll 15 out of 10 and the best looking girl at Nord High as well, I may add.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yes. So you go from there, and then, of course, from there, you've had your grounding, went back to West Adelaide, but Adelaide Lightning are born and really away you go. And away the state went too, sort of thing. You know, Adelaide Lightning were huge back then. Let's be honest, everyone loves a winner, and Adelaide Lightning did that consistently.
Yeah, and I sort of look back, and I guess I feel very fortunate that when I did move down, we still had 3 National League teams in West, North and Noarlunga because, you know, as a raw rookie coming down to Adelaide, I started playing WNBL immediately, whereas if I came to town, you know, and there's only one team, I would have struggled to make my debut maybe for a couple of years. So I feel very fortunate I was given that opportunity. And, and, you know, we went through the years that you had to fundraise to exist. You know, I've done all the car washes, yellow page deliveries, you know, everything that you need to do to stay afloat. So becoming Lightning was so wonderful because we didn't have to fundraise anymore. We were more professional. Jan Stelling was our coach. Jan was very ahead of her time with her cross training. So I think we really had so much success because we were so fit, and she had us peaking at exactly the right time. And because we had a great program, then we attracted great people. And, you know, out of the Institute of Sport, we got Joe Hill back, we got Jay Kingy, and we got Carla Boyd. So 3 amazing youngsters to come and join, you know, us who are a little bit older and veterans of the team. So I think I was 1994, yes. So I was 24, you know, when Lightning was formed, and pretty amazing journey with them.
How did you find the transition from, say, club basketball to obviously the Lightning, you know, being a little bit more national? Yeah,
so I obviously was playing state league for Westies, and our state league team was our WNBL team, which, you know, is very unique. But the physicality, I guess for me was the biggest thing, because, you know, when I played at home, you didn't touch each other. You played zone and you just cut the key, and so that was a big learning for me, is the physicality and I guess the speed of the game and intensity. But I realised that I loved that, and I loved the challenge. You know, and I think stepping over the white line just became something that I loved doing, and just loved the battle.
Let's go to your debut for Australia, Rach. So when was that? And look, let's be honest, 304 games later, it is an incredible career. When the debut, Rach?
Yeah, so 89. It was a pretty special year because it was the same year that Kieran made his debut with Essendon.
Essendon, yep.
So it was pretty special for the family. And, you know, obviously when you join the Opals, you have a 4-year plan, and the next Olympics was Barcelona. And, you know, we've just seen the Opals qualify for Paris.
Yeah, we're going to bring that up at the end, yep.
Yeah, I know. And it's quite ironic because Brazil didn't qualify. And back in 1992, we went to the pre-Olympic tournament in Vigo in Spain, because back then there was only 8 women's teams in the Olympic program. There's 12. So it was there was 16 nations trying to qualify for 4 spots. That's all that was left. And I remember we won our first 5 games, and we lost our 6th game in double overtime to Brazil, and we had to win our last game against Czechoslovakia, and we lost by 3. So that was that's still so visible in my mind, and all of us crying in the change rooms after, because I was 24. I was so ready to go to my first Olympic Games, and we all just felt like we'd failed, and it was so hard coming home and facing everyone. And, you know, a lot of changes were made after that. Our coach always gets the blame. He got sacked, and then they appointed Tom Ma. We also got a new name because we weren't always the Opals, incredibly, because the men were called the Boomers, we were called the Bloomers, which was awful.
Right.
So thank God we got changed to Opals, and then they tried, you know, we got the bodysuit as well. So there was a lot of changes that took place, but Tom Ma built a brand new culture, and I was very lucky because it was parallel with Lightning have a lot of success, and then obviously with the Opals, and so appreciative of my first Olympics in '96, and, you know, we created history when we won the first ever Olympic medal. It was pretty amazing.
Just going back a little bit of a step, I know the disappointment of obviously not qualifying in Barcelona there, but you got to pinch yourself a little bit. You know, young lady from, you know, country Victoria moves her way through some South Australian basketball, playing for the Lightning, and all of a sudden you're overseas playing for Australia. yes, all right, you didn't qualify, but gee, what an experience that would have been. And I think that's probably helped you a little bit for Atlanta, which we were just talking about.
Yeah, no, it really, as I said, Barcelona really hurt. And in between that, what was wonderful was that we hosted the World Cup in 1994, was called Oz 94. And, you could see the success of the World Cup in Sydney in 2022. So we finished fourth at that tournament. So that gave us a lot of self-belief. And then qualifications changed. There was now 12 women's teams in Atlanta Olympics. So our qualification became just through Oceania. And we've also always had the wood over New Zealand, thank goodness, in basketball.
Yep.
So the qualification process was so much easier. It's got harder again now because it's Asian and then playing against other nations. But yeah, I had to wait till I was 28, and it was quite surreal, obviously being there, and it was wonderful. Mum and Dad were there, and my partner at the time. So it was pretty amazing to experience that, and I guess my journey. Who would have thought, because my idol growing up was Raylene Boyle, because I used to see her run in the Olympics, and I just wanted to be like her. When I was 8 years old, I saw her run, and I realised I wasn't as fast as I thought running at home in the paddocks, but at least I got there in a team game, and in the sport that I think is the best game in the world.
Have to ask, did you do the opening ceremony at Atlanta?
We did.
What an experience!
It was amazing, and we were able to because we played the second day after the opening ceremony, and in Sydney we also did the opening ceremony even though we played the next day, because thankfully our coach Tom Ma said you can't miss it, you have to do it in your home nation. And so the only time we didn't was at Athens, because we played at 9 a.m. the next morning, and it's such a big night, the opening ceremony. You don't really get to bed till 1 or 2 a.m. and we had to be up at 6. So there was no way we were ever going to be able to do it in Athens.
And how about the thrill of winning the bronze medal too, Rach?
At Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was euphoric. And it's a really interesting one, because when you win a bronze, you've won your last game, you've won a bronze medal. My next two Olympics, we won silver, but you lose your final match.
I admit, that's where I was hinting going.
Yeah, so it's just the craziness of the difference of that experience. But you've achieved better when you're second in the world.
It is weird, isn't
silver,
it?
but you're crying because you lost. So it's probably not until you go back into the rooms and then you realise, okay, we've won a silver. You put your podium outfit on, you're back out on the dais together, and then you are happy, and you're celebrating. And unfortunately, bloody USA have kept us from the top podium. They haven't lost an Olympic match since 1992. They've won the last 7 gold medals. They're on a ridiculous winning streak, and I can't wait for someone to topple them. I certainly hope it's the Opals in July, August this year.
Okay, while we're there, the Opals qualifying, thank goodness. And look, we've got to talk about Lauren Jackson to come back again, and now's retired again. It's a bit of a Johnny Farnham in terms of that way, but
a comeback tour.
Yeah, what a player she.
Extraordinary. And I was lucky enough to be with Lauren on her first ever tour, and it was actually in Brazil, incredibly. And I remember she was 16, and she'd probably only play about 10 minutes each game, but her efficiency even then was off the charts. And we're like, yeah, okay, she's pretty good, but I'm sure she wouldn't be able to sustain that, over 40 minutes. But how wrong were we? And it ends up being the GOAT. So yeah, it was wonderful for me to, I guess, see from where she first started, and then the superstar that she became, and how important she was for us in Sydney. As an 19-year-old, she was our top scorer, I think second top scorer for the whole tournament, and just so poised beyond her years. I think she'd have to be the most mentally tough athlete I've ever seen. It can be so much going on in her life, but as soon as she steps onto the court, she's just so mentally focused. And I think having her the pre-Olympic tournament, she's your security blanket, because she's lived such big moments on the floor, and just having her in the program just gives everyone reassurance. And I know she would have given that in spades. And she didn't obviously play the last game against Serbia, because she'd already qualified. And the poor thing, her body, she can't train a lot. She was probably having cortisone injections in her knee every day. It's tough. Her body's been put through a lot. And I know she's said publicly it's her boys that she doesn't want to be away from, and she does struggle with that. And when you're leading into an Olympic campaign, you're away a lot.
Yeah.
So she's a 4-time Olympian. She doesn't have to prove anymore. So she's just got all that's missing from her cabinet is the Olympic gold medal, but she's got everything else.
She reminds me of Shane Warne in terms of just the mental toughness.
Yep.
That's my sort of. He could manage to decompartmentalise everything going on the court, and that's. You'd heard some private things Lauren was going through, but just still go over that white line, and away she went.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She admits herself that she was a bit of a nightmare when she was young on the basketball court. She was hard to coach, didn't really listen, probably wasn't a great teammate, but she matured so beautifully as she got older. And I think she said the tournament that she enjoyed the most was the World Cup in Sydney. The culture was really great with the Opals, and obviously they won the bronze. And, it was her comeback sort of game and tournament, and she just blew us all away. Hitting 30 in the bronze medal game was just extraordinary. So, yeah, I'm glad that she was I'm glad that I was, what is she, 42? I'm glad that I was 13 years older than her, so she wasn't always my opponent. Because she was definitely my toughest opponent. I'm so glad that she was also my teammate.
Yeah,
sort of reminds you a little bit of Kobe and LeBron and Michael Jordan, really, when it comes to that mental toughness when it comes to the basketball court, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's up there on her own in that regard.
Obviously, you head off to Atlanta. You come back, obviously playing for the Lightning. A couple of key moments there between, say, Atlanta and Sydney for the Lightning that, hold a special place in your heart?
Well, obviously when we did the three-peat, 94, 95, 96 were extraordinary because I remember we made the preliminary final in our first year as a franchise, but, I think we lost by 1 point to get through the grand final. So to dominate in the 90s like that when basketball was at the top of its game, I remember, we played before the 36ers. You'd have to book 3 months in advance to get a ticket. It was just so great those days. And then 97, because we made the grand final 5 years in a row, we lost in 97 and then won it again in 98. So, yeah, it was, pinching ourselves at time because, and, it's hard to stay on top because you do become the hunted. And, it did take a while for them to get another premiership. It was 2008 and obviously, haven't won one since. So you're always searching, trying to get back up there. No, absolutely the best of times, best memories for me playing for Lightning. I just absolutely loved it. And I guess I was just so appreciative that I was in an era when Lightning was formed and I got to play for them.
Now, I'm reliably informed today there may have been a game where Rachael SPORN was actually struggling and it had a poor first half. And Jan Sterling said, I'm going to blast Rachael at half time. And they went, no, you can't do that to the great Rachael and all that. And apparently Jan may have torn strips off you. You came out, dominated, 24 points in the second half and made the point to Jan afterwards. Thank you. That was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, she didn't yell at me much.
Yes.
And I know when she did, I didn't appreciate it at the time. It was half time. It was in front of all my teammates.
Yes.
And I was like, right, it made me so angry. But it worked. Yeah. So, but we had a very good relationship, and I didn't get too much of her wrath, I guess, over the journey. But she knew when I needed it, and she recognised that. And it's funny because when mobile phones first came out, I knew, and I still remember Jan's number. I think I only know 3 mobile numbers that I remember, and I still remember Jan's.
I'm a lot better than that.
We saw each other every day.
Yeah. Just in terms of, though, with Jan, ahead of her time and just master coach in terms of communication and reading the right buttons, etc., and installing your team belief and team chemistry.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, she built a great culture, just great offenses. and she had fantastic basketball IQ. Knew what plays to run in clutch moments when the pressure's on. She never really cracked, and she was amazing in how, because she was our fitness person, our coach, our dietitian. She did everything because we didn't have the money to have people to do that for us professionally. So I don't know. She just knew to cover everything that made us such a professional and fit team. And everyone that came into the program, she sort of knew what their role would be, how they would fit, and obviously Jan went on to coach the Opals and coached me in Athens, with the Opals, which was pretty special for both of us. So no, our time together, it's been a long time. It's been a long one.
Now we'll come back to the Sydney Olympics and Athens a little bit more, but in between all of that, you're the second round pick or 14th overall for Detroit. Just go through that experience once again, coming from little old Adelaide, and all of a sudden you're drafted into the WNBA. Yeah,
so obviously the WNBA was formed after the Atlanta Olympics, so 1997 was the first year, and Michelle Timms was the only Australian selected in the first year because she had an amazing campaign in Atlanta. And so, we were pretty excited because she paved the way for Australians and playing in Phoenix. And then, so I felt very privileged to be drafted. Wasn't thrilled that I was going to Detroit. It's not exactly. I was, hoping to get to Seattle or New York or somewhere a little bit more exciting. But, but what was great was Sandy Brondello and Carla Boyd came to Detroit as well. So having, my teammates, Opal's teammate and my Lightning teammate there with me was fabulous. Look, it was wonderful times because you were a professional basketballer while you were there. You didn't work. You just trained and played. We played in all the NBA stadiums. I played in Madison Square Gardens, which was like, wow, how good is this? Mm-hmm. And you played 32 games in 70 days. So it's just what you love. You love doing. You're not training as much and you're playing more. And the support in those early years, I think it's come back with WNBA, but they were averaging 15,000 a game, and it was just you go on the road and you're on a 9-day road trip, whereas here you're just gone for a couple of days. So that experience of that, I'll never forget it. Thankfully at the time our dollar wasn't great, so what you got paid, the wages weren't great. Like I was on 37,500 getting picked up in number 14 in the draft. That was all I was on. So it was nice, obviously, to get that in US dollars and convert that. But
you'd be on a bit more than that now, Rach.
Yeah. Well, they are. And I guess for me, I look back at all the players who, your Jenny Cheesemans, your Julie Nichols, your Pat Mickens, who got no money from basketball. Yeah. I feel very lucky that I came through, very appreciative when we weren't getting paid, and then you got a little bit of money, and then it was a bit more. It just helped you, I guess, be more professional because you didn't have to work quite as much. You could, work on your game.
Now, I have to ask, were you, all the Australian girls, were you living together? Was there some shenanigans along the way there over in Detroit?
No, we all had our own apartments, and we were all in I was already married. Not a whole lot of shenanigans. You're too tired to do. I think because it was, I was already 30 by the time I went to the WNBA. So maybe if I was 20.
I reckon you would have been amongst the votes, Rachael. Yeah.
I had to ask.
So it was, but it was just a wonderful experience. And I feel very, grateful that I got to do that.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break. Happy days.
All right, we kick off Happy Days. Firstly, with happy birthday to you, mate. I know you weren't here. You weren't here because of COVID, but happy birthday to you for a couple of weeks ago, mate.
Yeah, what a day to be Yeah, let's just say I've had better birthdays. Let's move on.
Fair call. All right. We move on to Sam Berry. Happy birthday. Obviously drafted to the Crows with the 28th selection in the 2020 draft. Growing up in country Victoria, Berry played for the Gippsland Power. Ironical that he's with the Crows, which is a bit of fun at junior level. Averaged 17.7 disposals, 9.8 contested possessions, 6.5 tackles in 10 games for the Gippsland Power. Then obviously transitioning over to Adelaide in 2021, and then obviously making his debut.
Yeah, I think there's promise there, but he's got to get the ball more. I think he's became a bit too much of secondary to the ball. So he bumped up the tackle stats. Well, hang on, there's a thing to get the agate as well. So
he's probably another player that you put in that needs to take another 5% step.
Big time. I watched him at SANFL obviously a few times last year, and there's a bit to work there with. Let's just say I hope he's had a big pre-season and is quick. That extra step or two.
Yep.
He needs to get that extra step to get the ball.
Absolutely. In 2022, Berry led the league in tackles, collecting 171 tackles for the year over 18 games for the Crows.
Yeah.
He had the highest average tackles per game of 9.5. So I think as part of Nix's plan, as far as almost Sydney-like, where it's nose to the grindstone and working things out, I think he's the perfect player for that. But like you've said, he just needs to take that extra step with obviously his first and second step, and then obviously getting the agate as well. So we look forward to it.
You had for that, where Matt Crouch came back in and played well. You're going to play Matt Crouch, I think there's enough of a question mark about playing Matt Crouch and Rory Laird together in the same midfield, let alone adding another similar player where I think they need more burst. So that's the question mark there. I'm still not against Laird going back to half back personally, but let's wait and see.
Obviously, Adelaide looking to put some players rotating through that midfield, so you might get your wish, mate. So we'll see how that one pans out. All right, we move on. 1882 cricket. Australian cricket opening bowlers Joey Palmer and Edwin Evans dismiss England for 133 in the second test played at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Palmer with 7 for 68.
Well bowled, Joey. I thought he was good that day. Got a good line and length, good pace. Well bowled, Joey.
And Evans 3 for 64. But I think
he supported, but Joey was the man.
He was. England all out for 133 as well. So we like to see that. All right, in 2008, tennis / the Laureus Awards. World Sports Awards in St. Petersburg, Russia. Sportsman of the Year, Roger Federer. Sportswoman of the Year, Justine Henin from the tennis side of things. And Team of the Year was the South African men's national rugby team.
Went all right, that Federer bloke. Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad. Yeah. Could play a little bit. So could Henin.
Yes, in fairness. She was, while we're making the mickey out of that, Justine Henin was very good as well.
And really, in the scheme of things, petite in stature, yet could pack a bloody punch.
Yeah.
So congratulations to them, obviously, in 2008. All right, we move on. 1996, NFL coaching maestro Bill Belichick is fired by the Cleveland Browns with a coaching career record of 36-44. Now, Belichick, obviously synonymous with the New England Patriots, only just retiring moving on this year. We also forget that he was also head coach at the Cleveland Browns, and the win-loss record, wasn't great, but he was around the mark.
It wasn't absolutely diabolical, though. So
absolutely. And also, Cleveland obviously being a slightly different footballing market as well. So we wish Bill Belichick the best for what's to come in the coming year. We'll see how that one plans out. And just another guy who I don't think many people have heard of, but in 1973, Muhammad Ali beats British heavyweight boxing champion Joe Bugner by unanimous points decision in 12 rounds in Las Vegas, same as the Super Bowl.
You think of what Muhammad did, with the protest and all that. He's up there with as influential as any sporting person in history. I think that's the best way to sum it up in seriousness.
Yep.
I've made the point before on previous show. Lucky enough, privileged to be at the G for the lap of Muhammad Ali in '98.
Yes,
and when that still really sticks in your mind how incredible it was compared to the game,
yes,
and that.
I think the other one that sticks out, is the Olympics. Obviously Lighting.
Yep.
I did actually see a documentary / Who Do You Think You Are type setup. Going back through family histories and talking about everything. And Muhammad Ali was actually one of them where they were interviewing the family, and it was amazing that he was actually able to do that Olympic torch, because they had people off to the side not knowing whether he'd be able to hold it up long enough, whether he'd be able to obviously maintain it, and he handled it like the professional that he is. And this is why we continue to say one of the all-time greats. So,
well said.
Absolutely. Let's get into the extra time big finish.
Extra time, big finish.
All right, basketball. Adelaide have another big loss and basically can kiss goodnight their 2023-24 season, which we sort of thought was already there anyway, but they were confident that they might be able to do something, but unfortunately another big loss to Brisbane didn't help.
Fell away towards the, where it looked like, hey, this could be incredible, but no, it's ending with a whimper. It started with a whimper, then improved, and unfortunately it's finishing with a whimper. So
two big losses to Tasmania and Brisbane haven't helped that. Yeah. And that leaves them with New Zealand. And New Zealand are in some pretty good form as well at the moment, obviously playing on the 18th at 3:30 p.m, I'm assuming Adelaide time or Australian Central Time. So I'm sure that's on all of the streaming platforms. And just finishing off on the basketball, do we think Scotty Ninnis is the man for the job? How does these last couple of performances affect that? Because their win-loss record to the start of 2024 was actually pretty good, and it was like, well, maybe this might be all right. But these couple of results put a big question mark.
And stalemate on contract talks for Humphreys came through yesterday, so that's not a good sign either.
Yep.
Probably doesn't help Scott's chances. If he came through and said, hey, I'm signing, Scotty's the man, that helps him big time.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Very, very interesting. All right, a bit of a watch and see. We'll move on to the NBL, or the Women's National Basketball League. But Lauren Jackson retires once again just minutes after the Opals qualify for the Paris Olympics. Huge thing to get her out of retirement.
Yeah.
Qualifies, you'd want to be part of it, but obviously the body is saying enough's enough.
Enough's enough. So, look, I'm sure that we'll speak about Lauren will come up as well with Rachael in terms of that regard.
Yep.
Superstar.
Can't say any more.
Probably our best ever female basketball.
Absolutely. All right, the NFL Super Bowl was played yesterday or Monday morning. AFL player from Perth was obviously going for the first Australian to win the Super Bowl, but unfortunately we still don't have one. Second time in 3 years, and I think the fifth player in 5 years, I believe, something around about that as well. So, we just can't crack it. But from all reports, he did his job and actually played pretty well. The Chiefs were down 10-0, but found a way to win. Mahomes, once again, at the helm. He's almost got that Brady-esque about him, hasn't he?
No, he's a chance. He's only 28 now and won 3, so it could well be.
And he's looking for more. I mean, I heard his speech afterwards going, "Hey, we're gonna enjoy it tonight, and we're gonna enjoy the week, but we're gonna get back to it, and we're here for a dynasty." So it's going to be very, very interesting. But in the Chiefs winning, it was the first back-to-back championship in 20 years. The last team to do it was my team, the New England Patriots. But was the main show Taylor Swift, or was she the sideshow on this occasion? Because it was a pretty big event.
Yeah, it's just America. It's just different. And how many times they should have run a book on that, how many times they put her on the screen. So, it's just different.
I'm sure at various Super Bowl parties there was probably drinking games based around how many times either Kelsey got the ball or she was flashed on the screen. So just the way it is. Obviously, well done to the Chiefs on that occasion. Golf, the playoff, a playoff to be decided, Live Golf season opener. It went that long that they had to play basically in darkness with a big screen lighting up the final green, and Jaco Niemann obviously outlasts Sergio Garcia in the season opening Live Golf event.
Yeah, different. Like that's where their time restraints and all that of compacting it sort of backfires to some regard, But a hard one to say we come back tomorrow morning, but it was probably getting towards that.
Very
wasn't
close
far
to
away from that.
Obviously sinking a 12-foot birdie putt from the fringe on the fourth hole of the playoff, hence the reason why it obviously dragged on a little bit longer. But, yeah, big, large screen lighting up a green, not exactly what you want. All right, to finish us off, mate, the AFL rule changes. What are your thoughts on some of them? I know we've talked about Laura Keane and some of those changes and her role. Do you think she's got some of them right and some of them wrong, or how are we looking at it?
Look, we understand on the head. We understand the legalities that the head's got to be desperately protected. We get that, but it's not a game that you can adjudicate against no clashes. I'm sorry, personally, Laura Keane, I've never heard anyone so far out of their depth trying to speak, and it's like swallowing tadpoles. You're just cringing each time she speaks that really there's no footy nous there, and it's a bizarre appointment. I'm sorry. It's just...
Time will tell.
Yeah, I know.
Time will tell.
But no, I just don't get it. I really don't.
No, fair call.
Just so far out of her depth.
We'll move on from that one. Just to finish off on the AFL today, who's the big jumper this year? There's always one team that jumps from outside the 8 into the 8. Who do we see that being?
Personally, Gold Coast.
Yep.
Personally, I just think the talent on their list, the fact that they've been lucky enough to get the 4 kids out of the academy who would have gone in the top 20 in the draft. And yes, I did go and watch them last year here, and Walter unfortunately is injured. Otherwise, he would have debuted for sure in round 1, and he is, as Bruce McAvaney would say, special. I just think the talent on that list with Rachael and Anderson, etc.
And now Dimmer, obviously, at the helm.
And I just think they can beat Richmond round 1. Then they get the bonus that they've already played a game, and to get Adelaide round 2, both up there. They could start the year with a real kabang. For me, they're the team. So,
vice versa, who's the team that probably slides out of the 8 at this stage?
I admit, I don't think there's anyone really obvious. I'm like you. I'm wondering on Melbourne with what's happened off the ground. For me, and a few injuries. If the big fella, if Max got injured, and I'll be honest, I hope he does, because young Verrill may well then get a chance.
Yes.
So I'd love that to happen, and all the best out there too, Stewie.
Yep.
Big time. For me, they're the one. Like, I think Sydney, with what they've added with Grundy and Adams and that there, I can't see them falling.
For me, it's probably St Kilda.
Yeah, but even then,
Bulldogs.
They did have a lot of injuries last year. Bulldogs did make the 8.
No, but I'm just thinking along the lines that they're going to be around the mark too.
Yeah, I think it's so hard. I honestly think at the moment there are 16 sides who could make the 8.
Yeah.
If North Melbourne or Gold Coast if North Melbourne or West Coast made the 8, that would be a mammoth surprise with where they're starting from, for how far they were behind last year. They would, but I think the other 16s all have a claim. So yes, I'd be a bit surprised if Richmond, a little bit surprised if Hawthorn, but I don't think. Again, Hawthorn beat Collingwood last year by 11 goals at one stage. So, if they get a run with their youngsters.
Yep, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think Gold Coast are probably going to be up there. I see Adelaide jumping, but realistically, they probably should have been in the 8 last year. Yes, we do know that the goal umpiring thing was one factor. I think there were a number of factors that could have actually had Adelaide in the top 4.
They lost too many away games as well. Let's be fair there. And they stuffed up against Gold Coast by not going to Darwin earlier. That was a major cock-up. So there was some things there. It still worries me with Adelaide, the weakness in ruck. They really need Thilthorpe to take a massive stride forward.
But it looks like he might be, because they have been playing him a little bit more during the pre-season.
So hopefully there, So I think there's still some big question marks of the honest battler side of Adelaide.
Yep.
So,
all right, mate, we're going to wrap that one up there. We thank Rachael SPORN for her time today. I thank you, mate, for being back in the studio and your dulcet tones and giving it to us to both barrels today when it comes to the cricket as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm still ropeable about that.
Absolutely. All right, mate. As per usual, we promise to do better next time. Thank you, mate. See you all next week.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.